Welcome to Book at Bed, where stories don't just help you fall asleep, they carry you somewhere magical. Tonight's adventure is something truly special. It's called Carrie and Kaitlyn's Bangladeshi Chronicles, a warm, funny, and unforgettable journey through family, friendship, and the kind of wonder you only find when you follow your heart. So snuggle in, pull the covers up, and imagine yourself under a blanket fort with fairy lights above and your best friend beside you. Because this story starts with a sleepover and ends with a dream. 1. Some people say magic starts with a spell. At our house, it starts with snacks, socks, and the words, "Would you rather?" It was sleepover night, the best kind of night. Kaitlyn and I were buried deep inside a blanket fort in my room, fairy lights twinkling like tiny stars overhead. Everything felt just a little bit enchanted, the way only forts and fairy lights can make it. We were in our pajamas, giggling so hard my belly actually ached. Kaitlyn had on her ketchup-stained red top, she swears it's battle-worn, and I was wearing my fluffiest green socks, the ones that turn our wooden floor into an Olympic skating rink. "Would you rather eat 100 pickled onions in one go?" Kaitlyn asked, eyes wide with mischief. "Or kiss a goat's bum in front of the entire school?" I nearly spat out my popcorn. That's the thing about us. We can go from howling laughter to oddly deep philosophical questions in a heartbeat. There's something about these nights, just the two of us, being ridiculous, being loud, laughing so hard we nearly cry. And right in the middle of the mess and the mayhem, that's when it always hits me. This, right here, is where the real magic begins. After the whole goat bum debate finally fizzled out, we both agreed on onions, obviously. Kaitlyn and I collapsed onto our backs and stared up at the fairy lights, blinking like stars caught mid-giggle. That's when she hit me with a proper curveball. She turned, serious for a second, looked me straight in the eye and said, "Would you rather visit your family in Bangladesh or have them all move here and live with you forever?" I blinked. Wait, all of them? Even Uncle Rafi, the one who sings out of tune and travels with 5 tubs of mango pickle wherever he goes? She nodded. Yep, even him. I laughed, but then I paused and thought about it properly. Because Bangladesh isn't just some faraway dot on a globe. It's half of me. It's the scent of Mum's cinnamon and cardamom in the kitchen. It's the bedtime stories she tells in 2 languages. It's the crackly video calls with Nana and Dadu, where Mum tilts the phone just right so I can wave at them through the screen. "I think I'd go there," I said softly. "I want to see it for real, not just hear about it. I want to walk the streets, eat the food, meet everyone, even the ones who'll pinch my cheeks." Kaitlyn scrunched her nose. "Do you have to call everyone Auntie?" "Yep, even the neighbour's cat." We burst out laughing. But her question stayed with me, like it had cracked something open in my heart. Something big, something magical, like a journey had already started, and we were just waiting for the dream to catch up. So here's the thing. I'm half white British, half Bangladeshi, or, as I like to call it, a perfectly balanced biryani, a little bit spice, a little bit Sunday roast, and somehow it works. Dad's side is all wellies, roast dinners, and politely waving at the neighbours like it's a competitive sport. Mum's side? Oh, that's pure Bangladesh. Bright clothes, loud laughter, and at least 6 bubbling pots of curry filling the whole house with magic. Growing up, I always knew I was a mix of both. Like wearing leggings with a salwar kameez top. Doesn't always make sense to anyone else, but it makes perfect sense to me. Mum tells me stories about her childhood all the time. She says the cities are like a party that never ends. Horns beeping, people shouting, colour everywhere. And the countryside? That's a whole other rhythm. Rice paddies that go on forever, rivers that shimmer like silver ribbons, palm trees swaying like dancers in the breeze. Oh, and once she rode a bike with 2 goats, 3 chickens, and her little brother all squashed on the back. Still not over that image. Sometimes I feel like I've got 2 homes. One here, all fairy lights, socks, and sleepovers. And one there, tucked into every story, every spice, every laugh I've yet to hear in person. And tonight, under this blanket fort, with popcorn breath and goat jokes still floating in the air, I felt both places gently tugging at me like they were whispering, "It's time." If you ever go to Bangladesh, there's one thing you should know. You will be fed. You could walk in saying, "I'm not hungry," and 5 minutes later find yourself halfway through your 5th samosa while someone's auntie leans over, hands you a fresh scoop of rice with her bare hand, and says with a smile, "Eat, beta, eat." Mum always says her childhood home in Bangladesh isn't just a house, it's a full-body experience. She describes sunshine-yellow walls that glow even when it rains, fans whirling lazily on the ceilings, and the smell of spices floating through the air like a warm, invisible blanket that wraps around your whole body. Out back there's a garden where red chilies grow like tiny explosions, and inside, it's never quiet. Bubbling pots on the stove, the soft jingle of bangles, and cousins arguing over who's cheating at cards. But what I remember most, from the faded photos, the video calls, and the way Mum's voice softens when she talks, is the warmth. The kind of warmth that pours out of Nana's smile, like she could melt a snowman with one look. The kind of calm that radiates from Dadu, sitting cross-legged like a statue carved out of peace itself. And the way everyone, talks to you like you matter, even if you've just knocked over a full jug of lassi. One night, Kaitlyn asked, "Do you have a big family there?" I grinned. It's like having 100 mums all trying to feed you at once. After all that talking and a mountain of popcorn, Kaitlyn started to drift off. She does this adorable thing where her eyelids drop like curtains, but she keeps mumbling halfway coherent replies like, "Yeah, goat curry, sounds great," right before she starts snoring like a kitten trapped inside a biscuit tin. I pulled the blanket up to my chin and stared at the fairy lights above us, still glowing, still magical. Still making my thoughts swirl with the colours and smells of Bangladesh. I imagined the way my name might sound there, not just Carrie, but Kari Beta, drawn out and wrapped in love, like a song someone's been saving just for me. And then, quietly, softly, my own eyelids grew heavy. I whispered into the quiet air, "Would you rather stay here forever or find out what dreams taste like?" That's when the room began to blur. The lights above melted into stars. And the floor, the real solid floor, just vanished, like I'd been scooped up by a cloud spun from mango pulp and moonlight. The real adventure had started, and guess what? I hadn't even packed a toothbrush. I shot upright and nearly collided heads with Kaitlyn. We weren't in my room anymore. We were smack in the middle of a bustling street market, and I mean proper market, the kind that hits your ears before your eyes catch up. Rickshaws zoomed past in wild bursts of colour. Men balanced baskets of bananas on their heads like fruit ninjas. And the smell? Oh, wow. It was like walking nose first into a curry commercial cranked up to 11. Kaitlyn blinked like an owl. "Are we?" "Yep," I said, already grinning. "We're in Bangladesh." Stalls stretched out in every direction, overflowing with glittery bangles, towering sacks of spices, rainbow saris that shimmered like sunlight had been stitched into them. It was beautiful chaos, the kind that makes your heart thump with joy. Then, out of absolutely nowhere, an auntie appeared and handed me a steaming hot paratha. "Eat, beta," she said kindly, and obviously I did. I have zero resistance to paratha. Kaitlyn spun around in a daze, eyes wider than a dinner plate. "This is insane. It's like your mum's stories, but with 200% extra chili." I laughed so hard my paratha nearly fell. Would you rather get run over by a rickshaw full of mangoes, or be trapped in a shop where every item smells like garlic? Without missing a beat, Kaitlyn pointed at a cart stacked with mangoes. "Bring it on." Among all the noise and colours there she was, like something out of a fairy tale. An elderly woman, wrapped in the most stunning blue sari I'd ever laid eyes on, sat behind a stall that looked like it had swallowed a rainbow. Saris of every colour, fiery orange, sunset pink, emerald green, folded neatly like treasure, stacked in towering piles that shimmered in the sun. She spotted us and waved. "Come, come, girls. I have something special." I was already hypnotised. Kaitlyn leaned in and whispered, "If I touch one, will I get superpowers?" The woman chuckled, that kind of deep, twinkling laugh that sounded like it had heard 1,000 secrets and still wanted to hear 1,000 more. "Every sari," she said, "has a story." She picked up a deep red one threaded with gold. "This one tells of a bride who danced barefoot across a mango grove." Then she held up a blue one. "This one remembers the monsoon rains when the rivers sang louder than the thunder." We just stared, wide-eyed, silent, like we were listening to a bedtime story spun from silk. "Would you rather," Kaitlyn asked softly, "wear the story of a dancing bride or the one about a thunderstorm river?" I grinned. "Easy. The one where I don't fall over while dancing." The woman nodded with a knowing smile. Then you must wear them both. We followed the scent of water and the sound of splashing feet, and just like that, the market behind us faded, like the last notes of a fading song. In front of us stretched a wide, gentle river, shimmering silver in the sunlight, dotted with wooden boats that bobbed like sleepy ducks after lunch. A group of fishermen stood at the shore, untangling nets and shouting jokes in Bengali, jokes I only half understood, but somehow fully loved. One of them looked up and grinned. "New helpers?" he called out, waving us over. Their boats were long and hand-painted, decorated with faded reds and blues that told their own quiet stories. They let us hold one of the nets, and of course, Kaitlyn managed to get tangled in hers immediately, like a spider trying to prank itself. "Would you rather get splashed in the face by a fish," I asked, "or smell like dried shrimp for a whole week?" "Too late," Kaitlyn said, holding up her hand and sniffing it. "I already smell like the river's lunch." They told us the rivers were everything, their roads, their gardens, their storytellers. They fish with the sunrise, sing while they work, and no matter what they catch, they always bring something home, even if it's just laughter. One of the men smiled kindly and said, "The river feeds us, carries us, and listens when no one else does." I looked out across the water, and in that moment, it didn't just feel like a river. It felt like a memory I hadn't made yet. We climbed into one of the fishing boats, very carefully, because Kaitlyn announced she would 100% tip us over like a soggy pancake. Classic Kaitlyn. We set off along the river, the world suddenly wrapped in quiet, but not the boring kind, the peaceful kind. The kind where you hear birds chirping like they're having a family meeting, and the splash of the oars sounds like someone stirring a giant cup of chai. The landscape unfolded around us like pages in a pop-up book. Rice paddies stretched out like giant green quilts, coconut trees stood tall and still like sleepy guards on patrol, and flowers, so many flowers, danced along the edges of the river as if they were watching us float by. Then we saw them, water lilies, not just one or two, hundreds. Their white petals floated on the surface, glowing softly, like stars had decided to nap in the water for a bit. "That's Bangladesh's national flower," I whispered to Kaitlyn. "My mum used to draw them in my lunchbox notes." She leaned over the edge of the boat, eyes wide. "Would you rather fall in trying to sniff one, or accidentally eat one, thinking it was a marshmallow?" I grinned. "You're the one who just said that out loud. Guess which one's more likely?" We laughed so hard the boat actually rocked, and in that moment it felt like we were floating through a dream I never, ever wanted to end. As the boat bumped gently against the shore, we stepped off into what looked like something straight out of a postcard, a quiet little village, tucked between the trees like it had always belonged there, like a giant had planted it long ago and simply said, "That'll do." We didn't even get 10 steps in before we were spotted. "Guests," someone called out, and then, boom, we were surrounded. Smiles everywhere, big ones, toothless ones, tiny, curious ones from kids who couldn't stop giggling. And at least 4 aunties who immediately decided I was in urgent need of feeding. One of them pinched my cheek and said something in Bengali. I didn't catch the full meaning, but I'm pretty sure it translated to, "You're too skinny, come eat this." Everywhere we looked, people waved. Children ran up to hold our hands like they'd been waiting for us all day. An uncle handed Kaitlyn a fresh coconut with a straw. She sipped it like royalty and gave me a look that said, "Why haven't I moved here yet?" Everything moved slower here, but not lazy slow. Peaceful slow. Simple. Kind. Like the world had taken a deep breath and remembered how to smile. "These people don't even know us," Kaitlyn whispered, "and they're acting like we're family." I nodded. "That's how it works here. If you show up, you belong." She blinked. "Would you rather live here forever, or at least until dinner?" I smirked. "Let's see what's cooking first." Just when we thought things couldn't get more magical, the music began. Not from a phone, not from a speaker, real music. Drums thumping like a heartbeat, bells chiming like laughter, voices singing so rich and rhythmic it felt like even the trees were humming along. A girl about our age waved us over. She had bright bangles stacked up her arms and eyes that sparkled like she'd stepped right out of a storybook. "Come," she said with a grin. "Dance!" Now I've seen traditional Bangladeshi dancing before. Graceful, elegant, like poetry written in movement. What I didn't expect was Kaitlyn launching in like she'd just arrived at a disco. She started flapping her arms like a chicken doing ballet. The girl giggled but didn't laugh at her, just smiled kindly and showed us how it's really done. Wrists moving like waves, fingers tracing invisible flowers in the air. I copied her slowly. And the strangest thing? It felt... right, like the music already knew my name. Kaitlyn leaned in and whispered, "Would you rather dance like a swan or sweat like a boiled prawn?" I grinned. "Both. If I'm having this much fun." We twirled. We stumbled. We laughed so hard I thought my smile might actually snap in half. And for one shining moment under the setting sun, we weren't visitors anymore. We were part of something ancient, something beautiful, and it danced right back. When the sun dipped below the trees, the whole village changed. Not quieter, just softer. People brought out woven mats and glowing lanterns. Someone lit a small fire and we all gathered around it like marshmallows waiting to be toasted, minus the actual marshmallows. At the centre, an old grandfather sat cross-legged. His beard was as white as steamed rice and his voice smoother than warm honey. Everyone leaned in as he began to speak in Bengali. His hands moved like birds in flight, each gesture painting part of the story. An auntie beside me translated in a soft whisper tales of clever animals, lost princes, and magical rivers that carried wishes. These weren't just stories, they were lessons wrapped in wonder, like being covered by a blanket made entirely of wisdom. Kaitlyn leaned in close and whispered, "Would you rather have a flying tiger for a pet, or be able to speak to trees?" "Flying tiger," I said. "Trees are too gossipy." We giggled, but quietly this time, the kind of laugh you save for somewhere sacred. Not because we weren't allowed to laugh, but because everything felt big and important, like we were sitting inside a living memory. And as the stars blinked awake above us, I realized something. Back home, bedtime stories help us fall asleep, but here, they help us wake up to who we are. We woke up to the sound of birds that didn't chirp. Proper songs, the kind that say, "Good morning, the world is ready. Are you?" The village had faded like mist, and now we stood in the middle of a tea plantation. Endless green hills rolled out in every direction, like someone had dipped a giant paintbrush in emerald and swept it across the land. Workers were already moving, baskets on their backs, fingers quick and careful, plucking only the softest tea leaves. The air smelled fresh, earthy and leafy, like the kind of herbal tea my mum pretends to enjoy. An older woman waved us over. Her smile was gentle, her hands sure. She showed us how to find the best leaves, her fingers moving like she'd done it 1,000,000 times, because she probably had. Kaitlyn gave it a go and dropped half of hers. "This is harder than it looks." "You're not supposed to yeet them into the air," I said, laughing. We picked side by side with the tea workers, listening as they shared their stories, not just about tea, but about life. Waking before the sun, singing while they worked, smiling with every leaf, knowing it might bring comfort to someone far away. Kaitlyn wiped her brow dramatically. "Would you rather drink tea made by a robot," she asked, "or handpick it on a hillside with singing aunties?" I didn't even hesitate. Singing aunties, every time. One second we were sipping tea, the next, whoosh, we were in the Sundarbans. It was like stepping into a jungle made of secrets. Tall mangrove trees stood on tiptoes, their roots curling above the ground like they were sneaking out past bedtime. The air was thick with salt, earth, and just the right amount of adventure. A local guide appeared, calm as still water, binoculars around his neck and a grin that said he'd seen it all. "Stay close," he told us. "You're in tiger territory now." Kaitlyn froze. "Did he just say tiger?" I shrugged. "It's fine. They probably don't like the taste of British kids." She half laughed, half panicked. "Would you rather get chased by a crab or a Bengal tiger?" I whispered. "Honestly, the crab, less teeth." We tiptoed across twisting wooden walkways, mangroves arching overhead like they were leaning in to listen. Birds called out from the trees, chattering like gossiping aunties with wings. In the distance we spotted wild deer, a monitor lizard sunbathing, and paw prints in the mud. Big ones. The guide glanced back at us, still smiling. "The tiger sees you," he said. "You may not see the tiger. Chill, cool, totally not terrifying at all. And yet it didn't feel scary. It felt sacred, like we'd entered someone else's story. Someone ancient, someone powerful. And they were watching us, kindly." At the edge of the forest, tucked between two ancient trees and an old boat that looked like it had definitely seen things, stood a tiny hut. It had solar panels on the roof, vines curling up its sides, and a hand-painted sign out front that read, Conservation Station. Inside, we met a man with boots so muddy they might have been grown in the swamp, a notebook packed with sketches of wild animals, and a calm, crinkly face that basically said, I once stared down a crocodile before breakfast. His name was Rafiq. We protect the Sundarbans, he told us. It's our home, our shield, and our story. He showed us everything, how they track animals by prints and poo, how they clean the waterways by hand, and how they teach local kids that nature isn't just outside their homes, it is their home. We share this place with tigers, crabs, birds, and trees, he said. Everything has a job, even the mud. Kaitlyn raised an eyebrow. Even the mud? Rafiq smiled. Especially the mud. Without it, nothing stands. We joined him and the others outside, planting baby mangrove trees in the soft, squishy ground. Our hands got caked in earth, our knees were wet, and I'd never felt prouder of being filthy. Kaitlyn grinned, wiping her hands on her shorts. Would you rather clean tiger poo or plant trees in a swamp? Easy, I said. Trees don't bite. We laughed, but the message stayed with me. Because here, protecting the wild wasn't just something you learned. It was something you loved. We left the trees behind and stepped into salt-kissed wind. Before us stretched a coastal fishing village, but not the postcard kind you see online. This one felt alive. Boats rested on the sand like sleepy whales, nets flapped on wooden racks like seaweed laundry, and everywhere you looked people were moving, weaving, hauling, laughing, shouting. The air smelled of salt and spice and something ancient. A circle of women sat on woven mats, their fingers dancing through thick ropes and nets so fast it looked like magic. And just so we're clear, it was definitely not easy. Want to try? One of them asked, passing us some twine. Kaitlyn jumped in like she was auditioning for a speed knitting competition. She tied a knot, then 3 loops, and somehow ended up with what she proudly called a wobbly pretzel. I gave it a go. Mine looks like a sad octopus, I confessed. The woman laughed. Perfect! Confused fish are easier to catch. They told us how the sea gives everything, food, songs, stories, and even secrets, but only if you respect it. This net, one auntie said, feeds more than our mouths. It feeds our hearts. Kaitlyn grinned. Would you rather fish in a storm or try to sell a wobbly pretzel net at a market? I held up my masterpiece. Easy. This belongs in the Museum of Mistakes. We laughed, those big open-belly laughs that the sea catches, lifts up, and carries away forever. We must have taken 2 steps out of the fishing village when, boom, the air exploded with music and colour. We'd stumbled straight into a harvest fair, and I don't mean a shy little gathering with a raffle and one sad bouncy castle. I mean a full-blown festival, the kind that grabs you by the hand, spins you in circles and says, "You're part of this now." People danced in every direction. Some shouted greetings. Others stirred giant pots over open flames. A few carried baskets so stuffed with snacks, I wasn't entirely sure if they were meant for eating or ceremonial offerings to the food gods. The clothes? Brighter than a fireworks finale. Orange, green, gold, deep red, all swirling together like a living kaleidoscope. And the smell? Oh wow. Spices, sugar, frying dough, coconut, cardamom. The air itself had flavour. Kaitlyn was already spinning in circles like she'd inhaled cinnamon and joy. Would you rather eat everything once or pick one thing and eat it forever? Just then, someone handed me a deep-fried ball of something glorious. I took one bite, and my soul left my body. Whatever this is, forever, please. We tried everything. Sweet rice cakes, puffed rice snacks, sizzling kebabs on sticks. At one point, Kaitlyn bit into a chili and had what can only be described as a mild out-of-body experience. She fanned her mouth and declared, "I've been reborn in spice." There were games, dancing, and a man playing a flute while balancing a basket on his head. No one knew why. No one needed to. Because somehow, in this burst of colour, music, and magic, we weren't strangers anymore. Here, all you needed was a smile, and maybe a second helping of kebabs. After the festival, and Kaitlyn recovering from her chilli meltdown, which involved fanning her mouth with a flip-flop and begging the nearest auntie for rice, we blinked. And just like that, the music was gone. Not gone, gone. More like faded, like it had gently stepped aside to make room for something older, something sacred. We stood in front of an ancient temple, half covered in vines, half made of stories. The stone walls were alive with carvings, dancers mid-twirl, elephants in full parade, gods frozen in mid-blessing, warriors locked in eternal battles. It was like someone had paused time with a chisel. "Whoa," Kaitlyn whispered. "Did we just unlock a level in a video game?" I looked around, awestruck. I think we just walked into a history book. Then, as if summoned by the atmosphere itself, an elderly man appeared, part historian, part wizard. Round glasses, long walking stick. He spoke slowly, like his words had to travel down from the stars first. "These ruins," he said, "are the bones of our stories. Bangladesh has been here long before maps, long before names. You stand on the shoulders of empires." He led us through the echoes, pointing out hidden carvings, forgotten corners, and ancient symbols that once guided kings and queens. There was even a shadowy tunnel that led who knows where. We gave it a respectful wave and did not go in. "We've seen films." Kaitlyn leaned closer. "Would you rather be the hero of a lost legend, or the only one who knows the truth?" I grinned. "Easy. The hero. But only if I get a cape." She smirked back, "and I get a sword." We wandered through the ruins together, whispering our own legends, and I swear, with every step we took, we weren't just walking through history. We were becoming part of it. Next, we stepped into a city so alive, so electric, it made Dhaka's market seem like a meditation retreat. But this wasn't about tuk-tuks or traffic horns. This was something else. This was about art. Down a winding alley bursting with clangs, sparkles, and the smell of hot metal and clay, we found it. A workshop glowing like treasure. Not the wizardy, wand-waving kind of magic, but the handmade kind. The kind that smells like paint and patience. Inside, artisans moved like dancers. One man twisted silver wire into the shape of a tiger, all teeth and grace. Another carved a clay bowl so delicately that the peacock on it looked like it might just take flight. Jewellery glinted in trays like tiny suns. Pottery lined the walls in every colour imaginable, the kind of plates you'd never want to eat crisps off, even though you really, really want to. "How long does it take to make something like this?" Kaitlyn asked, holding up a pair of earrings that shimmered like stardust. The artist smiled, hands still working. Sometimes weeks, sometimes lifetimes. He told us how the skills had been passed down through generations, from grandparent to grandchild, by firelight and fingertip. It wasn't just craft, it was memory. It was identity. Their hands moved like poetry. Their faces glowed with pride. Kaitlyn nudged me. "Would you rather be the artist or the artwork?" I thought about it. "Artist. The artwork doesn't get tea breaks." She nodded like she'd just solved life. Facts. And then they let us try. I made a wobbly clay cup that might have been a mug or a mutant bowl. Kaitlyn created something roundish, which she declared abstract. They still let us sign our names on the back, because here, effort counts. Mistakes are honoured, and every smudge tells a story. We followed the hum of 1,000 sewing machines, a melody of motion and mastery, and stepped into a textile factory that felt like someone had spun a kaleidoscope and invited us to walk inside. Fabric flew through the air like colourful kites. Spools of thread lined the walls in every colour ever invented, and a few the rainbow probably forgot. Workers moved in perfect rhythm, snipping, stitching, smoothing, creating wearable masterpieces from what looked like chaos, but was actually a beautiful kind of order. This wasn't a room full of robots. This was tradition, alive. 1,000 hands, each one telling a story with every stitch. A woman with warm eyes and an even warmer smile guided us through the floor. She showed us how they made shirts, dresses, school uniforms, and saris that travel the world. "When someone in London buys a dress," she said, "sometimes it was made right here." Kaitlyn's eyes went wide. "Wait, what if I've already worn something from this factory?" I grinned. "Then you're basically fashion royalty in Bangladesh." She puffed up proudly. "Would you rather design your own fashion line or sew for a superstar?" "Superstar," I smirked. "Please, I am the line." Then they let us try. I sewed 2 inches of straight, glorious triumph before the thread tangled itself into a spaghetti knot. Kaitlyn managed to stitch her sleeve closed while still wearing it. But no one laughed, they cheered, because here it wasn't about perfection. It was about pride. It was about how every stitch, crooked or straight, carried heart, heritage, and heat, and for one magical moment, we were part of the pattern. Just when we thought the dream couldn't get any warmer, they fed us. And I don't mean, here's a biscuit. I mean, prepare your soul kind of feeding. We were invited into a family home tucked behind the village, clay walls low and earthy, windows painted with bright colours that danced in the afternoon sun. The air smelled like spice, warmth, and something impossible to describe, like a hug for your nose. Inside, the dining area was a feast of feasts. There was biryani with saffron rice so fragrant it felt like perfume for your taste buds, chicken so juicy it practically whispered your name, and dal that shimmered like gold. Flatbreads were stacked like tiny carb mountains, and chutneys lined up like colourful paint pots, daring you to pick the spiciest one. Aunties floated around us like food fairies, moving fast, smiling wide, piling food onto our plates like they were preparing us for a food-based Olympic event. "Eat, Beta, eat!" Every time we finished a spoonful, a new dish appeared like magic. Kaitlyn tried to say she was full. They handed her more rice. We sat cross-legged on woven mats beside the family, learning the art of eating with our hands. Scoop, fold, swipe. No forks, just fingers and joy. Laughter bubbled up between mouthfuls, stories passed around like the salt, and food, oh the food, was love made edible. Kaitlyn leaned in and whispered, "Would you rather eat with a spoon forever, or never say no to an auntie offering seconds?" I looked at the fourth samosa, slowly claiming territory on my plate. I already can't say no. And that's when I realised the food was amazing. But the way they treated us, like family from the moment we walked in, that's what really filled us up. That night, everything slowed down. No rushing, no questions. Just the gentle hum of crickets, the faint strum of music floating through the warm air, and that golden, fuzzy feeling in my belly, the kind that only comes from really good food, and being completely, unapologetically loved. Kaitlyn and I lay side by side on the roof of the family's house, wrapped in soft, slightly mismatched blankets. The stars above us didn't just twinkle, they burst. It was like someone had spilled glitter across the sky and forgot to clean it up. "I get it now," Kaitlyn said, her voice quieter than usual, not sleepy but thoughtful. "Why this place means so much to you." I nodded. "It's not just where my family's from. It's who they are. It's how they greet you like you've always belonged, even if your shoes are still by the door and your name is new to their ears. The smells, the stories, the warmth of every smile. Even the hugs that come before the hellos, it all felt like pieces of me I hadn't properly met yet. Until now." Kaitlyn looked up at the sky. "Would you rather stay here forever, or come back every year?" I smiled. Not a quick one, a real one. One that started somewhere deep. "I don't need to choose," I said. "It's already a part of me." And the stars above us blinked like they were listening, and for the first time in forever I didn't feel like I was made of halves. I felt whole, woven from two worlds, and proud of every thread. I blinked. Gone were the stars, gone were the saris, the scent of cardamom drifting through the air. I was back in my bedroom, fairy lights still glowing softly above, popcorn still in the bowl, and Kaitlyn drooling slightly on her pillow. Classic. Milo let out a sleepy little sigh from the floor, his tail giving one lazy thump, like maybe he'd dreamed it too. I sat up slowly, caught in that strange, fuzzy space between dream and morning. The kind where you wonder if your brain just showed off, or if something magical actually happened. Then Kaitlyn stirred, rubbed her eyes, and blinked at me. "Did we just—" I nodded. "Yep." She grinned, the kind of grin that starts small and takes over your whole face. "I think I danced with a peacock and ate 17 kinds of curry. And I may have single-handedly destroyed the fishing net industry," I said with a laugh. We didn't say anything else after that. We didn't need to. We just sat there wrapped in that perfect kind of silence, the kind that feels like it's still holding a secret. The kind that echoes with dreams. We'd been somewhere incredible, and somehow it had followed us home. Later that morning, Kaitlyn and I sat cross-legged on my floor, sipping hot chocolate, still wrapped in the glow of something we couldn't quite explain. Our eyes were locked on the newest thing in my room, a big, beautiful map of Bangladesh, stretched proudly across the wall. But this wasn't just any map. It had become ours. We'd covered it with doodles, stickers, scribbled notes from a dream too vivid to forget. A tiny mango by Dhaka, a dancing peacock somewhere near the village, a sketch of Milo in a sari, don't ask. Each little mark, a memory, a story we'd lived together. Kaitlyn pressed on the final sticker, a little green tea leaf, and said with a proud smile, "Right there, for the aunties who made us honorary tea experts." We stared at it for a long time, not like tourists studying a place, but like girls looking at a piece of their heart. And me? I felt something shift inside, something settle, something shine, because now I knew I wasn't made of halves. I was made of stories, of family, friendship, curry, chaos, culture, all stitched together like the finest sari thread. "Would you rather forget it all," Kaitlyn asked, her voice soft, "or remember it forever, even if no one believes you?" I smiled. "Easy. I'll remember it forever." And as I looked at that map, full of stars, scribbles and heart, I whispered to myself the truest thing I've ever known. Bangladesh is home too. And that's the end of tonight's adventure with Book at Bed. Thank you so much for listening. We're so glad you came along. May your dreams be full of colour, kindness and a little sprinkle of magic. Sleep well, dream big, and remember, the best stories stay with you, even when you wake up. Good night from Book at Bed. Sweet dreams.